Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Daf, Menachot Daf 27 of B. And I'll just finish off the last sentence in the previous. The reason it states that it is in order to repeat the command of the sprinklings to teach that if one omitted one of the placements of blood, he has done nothing. The sage taught and advised that if the priest performed the 7 sprinklings of the blood of the red heifer improperly, so what does that mean? Sheba hazaos sheb bapara. If the blood of the red heifer is sprinkled not for its own sake, or sprinkled not toward the sanctuary, it is not valid. And according to the Beit and Rambam Sefer Tahara, would power Duma 4:3-5. The rise of the red heifer would take place in the wilderness outside the camp to the east, and in Jerusalem on the Mount of Olives. Before the heifer's flesh was burned, the priest was required to sprinkle of its blood 7 times toward the front of the tent of meeting, Numbers 19:4, westward, as he faced the front of the sanctuary, which was to the east. The reason is that if the sprinkling was not done for its own sake, it was not valid in that, despite not actually being an offering, the red heifer is called a sin offering, in Numbers 19:9. The sin offerings are disqualified when they are sacrificed not for their own sake, with regard to the fact that the sprinkling is not valid when performed not precisely toward the entrance of the tent of meeting. But she explains that this is because the term statute is used with regard to the red heifer improperly, either by performing them not for their own sake, or performing them not precisely toward the entrance of the tent of meeting of the tabernacle, in Numbers 19:4, which corresponds to the sanctuary in the temple. They are not valid. And there's a picture of the temple of Mikdash, the complex. If you have this edition on 171, the sanctuary, the entrance hall, between the entrance hall and the altar, the priest's courtyard, the Israelite courtyard, the gate of Nicanor, if I'm saying that correctly, which leads into the women's courtyard and the eastern gate. But with regard to the sprinkling of the blood that takes place inside the sanctuary of the inner sin offerings, the blood of the bull and the goat of the Yom Kippur, the blood of the bull of the anointed priest, the blood of the bull for an unwitting communal sin, and the blood of the goat of idol worship, which are to be sprinkled before the Lord in front of the curtain of the sanctuary, in Leviticus 4:6, and sprinkling of the oil that takes place during the purification of the leper. So what does that mean? When a priest sprinkles oil on the leper from the log of oil, he must sprinkle in the direction of Holy of Holies, and if he performed the sprinkling not for their sake, they're not valid. If he does not sprinkle in the correct direction, they are valid. And that's in the Rambam Sefer Kabbalah, Hilchot Mishrei Kapal 4:2-5-7. Which is done 7 times before the Lord, in Leviticus 14:16. But if they are performed not for their own sake, then they are not valid. Any sin offerings, including the innocent offerings whose blood is sprinkled not for its own sake, is unfit. And that's in Rambam Sefer Tahara, Hilchot B'Sudei Makdoshen 15:1. They're not valid. But if they perform not precisely toward the direction in which they sprinkled, they are valid. The blood of the bull and the blood of the goat of the Yom Kippur were each sprinkled separately 8 times between the staves of the ark and 8 times on the curtain. The blood of the 2 of them was then mixed together and sprinkled 4 times on the 4 corners of the golden altar, and 7 times on the middle of the golden altar in the sanctuary. If the inner sprinklings are not directed correctly, they are still valid. And that's Rambam Sefer Kabbalah, Hilchot 5:12. The glass. But isn't it taught in the Bible concerning the sprinklings of the blood of the red heifer that if they were performed not for their own sake, they are not valid, but if they were performed not precisely toward the entrance of the tent of meeting or sanctuary, they are valid? Now, Chris said this is not difficult. This second bias is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, whereas a third bias is according to the opinion of the rabbis. As it taught in the Bible in Tosefta Kalim 1:10, with regard to those who have not yet brought an atonement offering to complete the purification process, and therefore are not permitted to enter the temple or partake of sacrificial meat, who entered the temple courtyard. So what's the front of there? The Rambam rules that those who have not yet brought an atonement offering and enter the Israelite courtyard inside the gate of Nicanor are punished with lashes for rebelliousness. According to his opinion, they have violated a prohibition by rabbinic law. This is not according to the biases cited here, which rules that they are liable to receive karet, indicating that the prohibition is by Torah law. The Ravid rules that just like any other impure person, if one who has not yet brought an atonement offering enters intentionally, he is liable to receive karet, and if he does so, unwittingly liable to bring a Steinsaltz sin offering. And according to Stefta and the Breiter here, And Sefer Avodah Hilchot Beis Hamikdash 939, and Ketzer Mishnah there, and Hilchot Beis Bechira 718. I lost the footnote. And one thing, they are liable to bring a sin offering, and if they ended intentionally, this is punishable by Kohen. And needless to say, the same applies to one who was richly impure immersed that day and is waiting for nightfall for the purification purchase to be completed, and all the others who are richly impure and have not yet immersed. So what does that mean? Tavu yom ushar kol hamayim. Any impure person, including one who immersed that day, is waiting for nightfall for the purification purchase to be completed, who entered the temple court inside the gate of Nicanor, is liable to receive karet if he entered there intentionally, and must bring a sliding scale sin offering if he entered there unwittingly. This is in contrast to Braita from Sefer Avodah Hilchot Beis Hamikdash 3:12-14. Not yet immersed. And with regard to those who are pure who entered, if an ordinary priest or the high priest entered the Holy of Holies on any day except for Yom Kippur, or if the high priest entered the Yom Kippur for the purpose other than performing the sacrificial rites of the day, he is liable to receive death at the hand of heaven. If an ordinary priest or the high priest entered the sanctuary outside of the Holy of Holies for a purpose other than performing the sacrificial rites or to prostrate himself, he received lashes. This is according to the opinion of the rabbis on Sefer Avodah Beis Hamikdash 2:3-4. Beyond the boundaries, beyond where it is permitted for them to enter, such as a priest who enters the sanctuary for the purpose other than performing a temple service. If one entered any part of the sanctuary, he is liable to receive 40 lashes. If he entered within the curtain, separating the sanctuary and the Holy of Holies, i.e., into the Holy of Holies, or he entered the Holy of Holies all the way until he was before the ark cover, he is liable to receive death at the hand of heaven. Rabbi Yehuda says, if he entered part of the sanctuary or within a curtain separating the sanctuary and the Holy of Holies, he is liable to receive 40 lashes. But if he entered the Holy of Holies all the way until he was before the ark cover, liable to receive death at the hand of heaven. With regard to what issue do the rabbis and Rabbi Yehuda disagree? They disagree with regard to the proper understanding of this verse. And the Lord said to Moses, speak to Aaron your brother that he not come at all times into the holy place within the curtain before the ark cover which is upon the ark, that he not die. In Leviticus 16:2, the rabbis hold that entering into the holy place at the sanctuary is subject to the prohibition of he shall not come, and one who violates it is punished with lashes. Whereas entering within the curtain separating the sanctuary and Holy of Holies and before the ark cover is subject to the warning of he shall not die, and entering there is punished by death at the hand of heaven. And Rabbi Yehuda holds that entering into the holy place, either sanctuary, and within the curtain separating the sanctuary and the Holy of Holies is subject to the prohibition of he shall not come, and one who violates it is punished with lashes, whereas entering before the ark cover is subject to the warning of he shall not die, and entering there is punished by death at the hand of heaven. The Gemara asks, what is the reason for the interpretation of the rabbis? The Gemara answers, if it should enter your mind to explain the verse that Rabbi Yehuda says that then let the merciful one write that he not come at all times into a holy place before the ark cover, that he not die. And there's no need to write within the curtain. And I would say if one becomes liable to receive lashes for entering the sanctuary, it is necessary to teach that one encourages punishment for entering within the curtain. Why don't he is afraid within the curtain that the merciful one wrote? Learn from that seemingly extraneous term that entering the Holy of Holies is punishable by death at the hand of heaven. And Rabbi Yehuda understands if the merciful one had written only that it is prohibited to come into the holy place and did not write within the curtain, I would say, what is the holy place? It's within the curtain, the Holy of Holies, and one who enters violates a prohibition, but if one enters that sanctuary, does not even violate a prohibition. The rabbis respond to this claim. You cannot say that as the entire sanctuary is called a holy place, and as it is stated, and the curtain shall divide for you between the holy place and the Holy of Holies in Exodus 26:33. And what is the reason for the interpretation of Rabbi Yehuda? Why does he hold that one who enters the Holy of Holies violates the prohibition but is not punished with death at the hand of heaven? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Yehuda holds that it should enter your mind to explain, as the rabbis say, that entering the Holy of Holies is punishable by death at the hand of heaven. Let the merciful one write that he not come at all times into the holy place, and within the curtain that he not die. And there is no need to write before the ark cover. And I would say, if entering within the curtain, the Holy of Holies is punished with death at the hand of heaven, is it necessary to teach that one incurs the punishment before entering before the ark cover? Why don't you the phrase before the ark cover that the merciful one wrote? Then from that seemingly extraneous term that the entering before the ark cover is punishable by death at the hand of heaven, and within the curtain many violates a prohibition. The rabbis understand, indeed, it is that in order to teach the punishment of death at the hand of heaven, it is not necessary for the verse to also state before the ark cover. And the reason that the Merciful One wrote before El Panei, the ark cover, was in order to exclude one who entered the Holy of Holies to a roundabout path, as one who did not enter facing the ark cover, i.e., from the east, is not punished by death at the hand of heaven. This is as the school of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov taught with regard to the verse, and he shall sprinkle it with his finger before El Panei, the ark cover to the east in Leviticus 16:14. They established a paradigm. Benaav established a paradigm. This is a form of interpretation based on induction. 3 types of inductive analogies are found in rabbinic literature. 1, the analogy is based on the question, what do we find with regard to? 2, an analogy based on 1 verse. 3, an analogy based on 2 verses. The simplest form of the analogy is the question, what do we find with regard to? Just as in case A, halacha X applies, so too it may be inferred that in case B, which is similar to case A, halacha X should apply. It is an extrapolation from one case or verse where certain details are specified to a similar case or series of cases where the details are not specified. That any place in the Torah where it is stated before Panei, it is referring to nothing other than before the eastern side. The Gemara asks, but how does Rabbi Yehuda respond to this? As it is clear from the term before Al Panei, the ark cover is necessary to exclude one who entered the Holy of Holies through a roundabout path. And what answers, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if the purpose was for that reason, let the verse say before Panei, the ark cover, what is the purpose of the word El? Learn from that seemingly extraneous term that one is punished with death at the hand of heaven, specifically if he entered before the ark, but not if he merely entered the Holy of Holies. And the rabbis hold that the term El does not mean specifically one who enters directly before the ark cover. And one hour turns to it, suggesting that the contradiction between the 2 brides with regard to whether the sprinklings of the red heifer are valid or not, when performed not precisely toward the entrance of the tent of meeting, can be resolved by explaining that one bride is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and the other is according to the opinion of the rabbis. And Rabbi Yehuda says the expression before Al Panei, the ark cover, teaches that the punishment is limited to one who specifically entered directly before the ark cover, holds that the expression and sprinkle of its blood toward the front, Numbers 19:4, also means that sprinkling must be performed specifically toward the front of the sanctuary. And the rabbis are of the opinion that from the fact that the term El does not mean specifically that one is liable to be punished with death at the hand of heaven, only if it entered directly before the ark cover. Here too, they hold that it is not meant specifically, and therefore the sprinklings are valid even when performed not precisely toward the entrance of the tent of meeting. Rabbi Yosef rejects this explanation. According to Rabbi Yehuda, from the fact that the term El is used specifically, the verse, and he shall sprinkle of the blood before Al Panei, the ark cover, Leviticus 16:14. It should also mean that the sprinkling must be performed specifically upon the ark cover. But in the time of the second temple, where there's no ark or ark cover, would Rabbi Yehuda say that indeed the sprinklings were not performed? This is clearly not correct, as all agree that sprinkling performed in the second temple. TM 152b. Rabbi Ba'una said in response, the verse states with regard to the Yom Kippur service, and they shall make atonement for the most holy place, Mikdash HaKodesh, Leviticus 16:32, which is interpreted as follows: he will sprinkle the blood to make atonement, not specifically on the ark, HaKodesh, but even on the place that is dedicated Hamkudash for the ark, the Kodesh. The Gemara offers another resolution to the contradiction between the brighter concerning whether the sprinkling of the red heifer are valid or invalid when performed not precisely toward the entrance of the tent of meeting. Rabbi said, both this bright and that bright are according to the opinion of the rabbis. And that's the end of the Omid, the end of 27, Daf 27. Wish you all a good day and all the best. Bye.